The diplomatic vessel Harmony's Edge drifted through the Andromeda corridor, carrying the first human delegation to the Zephyrian homeworld. Among the crew, Dr. Elsa Morgan adjusted her biosensor array one last time, her fingers trembling with excitement. Beside her, Captain Hassan Malik reviewed the cultural protocols with narrowed eyes. "Remember," Hassan said, his voice steady despite the magnitude of their mission, "the Zephyrians are our first contact with a truly advanced civilization. Everything we do reflects on humanity." Elsa nodded, pushing a strand of auburn hair behind her ear. "I've memorized every custom, every gesture. We're ready." What neither of them knew was that humanity's greatest strength would nearly end first contact before it began. The Zephyrian council chamber shimmered with bioluminescent walls, casting ethereal blue light across the assembled delegates. The aliens themselves were magnificent. Tall, slender beings with translucent skin that revealed delicate circulatory systems pulsing with golden fluid. Their movements were graceful, almost floating, as they welcomed the human delegation with ceremonial songs that resonated through the chamber. Hassan stepped forward, his military bearing softened by a diplomatic smile. The Zephyrian matriarch Thessera extended 3 elongated fingers in greeting. Her voice emerged as melodious chimes from a vocal membrane on her neck. "Humans of Earth, we welcome you to our sanctuary. You have traveled far through the void." "The honor is ours, Matriarch Thessera," Hassan replied through his translation device. "We come in peace and friendship." The ceremony proceeded flawlessly. Cultural exchanges were made, gifts presented, promises of cooperation spoken. Elsa documented everything, her scientific mind cataloging each detail of Zephyrian physiology and behavior. She noticed how the aliens moved in perfectly synchronized patterns, how their bodies seemed almost fragile, protected by environmental suits that regulated temperature and atmospheric pressure. Then came the ritual of purification, a traditional Zephyrian custom before the formal treaty. Signing. "You must cleanse yourselves in the sacred chamber," Thessera explained. "Remove your outer coverings and allow our healing waters to prepare you for the binding oath." Elsa felt her stomach drop. She glanced at Hassan, who maintained his composure despite the obvious concern in his eyes. They had studied Zephyrian customs extensively, but this ritual had been mentioned only in passing. The aliens themselves wore minimal clothing, thin, mesh-like garments that covered their primary organs. Their culture had no concept of modesty as humans understood it. "Of course," Hassan said carefully, "we will honor your traditions." The purification chamber was vast, filled with pools of luminescent liquid that released sweet-smelling vapors. Several Zephyrian attendants waited, all female by their species standards, their translucent forms moving gracefully through the mist. Elsa entered her designated pool area, removing her diplomatic uniform with clinical efficiency. She was a scientist. She had studied countless alien life forms. This was simply another cultural experience. The warm liquid embraced her skin and she felt oddly at peace. In the adjacent chamber, Hassan followed the same process. He had survived combat, diplomatic crises, and the harsh void of space. Removing his clothes for an alien ritual should have been simple, but when he emerged from the pool, wrapped in a traditional Zephyrian ceremonial cloth that left most of his torso and limbs exposed, the reaction was instantaneous. A Zephyrian attendant saw him. Her crystalline eyes widened. The golden fluid in her veins pulsed rapidly, a sign of extreme distress. She opened her vocal membrane and released a sound that could only be described as a scream, high-pitched, resonating, filled with terror. Within seconds, every Zephyrian in the chamber was backing away, their bodies pressed against the bioluminescent walls. More screams echoed. Guards rushed in, their energy weapons drawn but trembling in their delicate hands. "Monster," one cried in their melodious language. "The creature is a monster!" Hassan froze, his mind racing. What had he done wrong? He looked down at himself, searching for some violation of protocol. Then Elsa burst through the partition, her own ceremonial cloth hastily secured. "Hassan, don't move." She approached the Zephyrian slowly, her hands raised. "Please, explain what's wrong. We mean no harm." Thessera emerged from the crowd, her composure barely maintained. She stared at Hassan with something between horror and fascination. "Your companion, he is dense, so impossibly dense." "Dense?" Elsa repeated, confused. "His structure," Thessera continued, her voice shaking. We can perceive the electromagnetic signatures of all beings. Your companion's body is compressed. Layers upon layers of muscle fiber, skeletal density that would crush our bones, organs that operate under enormous pressure. He is built for a death world. Understanding flooded through Elsa. The Zephyrians had evolved on a low-gravity planet with a gentle atmosphere. Their bodies were adapted for efficiency and grace, not survival. They could literally see through their translation technology and sensors what lay beneath human skin, and what they saw in Hassan, in any human, was terrifying. He's a predator, another Zephyrian whispered. Look at his eyes, forward-facing, binocular vision for tracking prey. His teeth, another added, designed for tearing. Hassan slowly raised his hands higher, keeping his movements deliberate and non-threatening. I understand your fear, he said gently. Yes, humans evolved as persistence hunters on a high-gravity world. Our bodies are adapted for survival in harsh conditions. But we are also capable of compassion, cooperation, and peace. Thessera studied him for a long moment. You could destroy us. Any of you could. Your physical strength alone, but we won't, Elsa interjected. That's the point of humanity. Yes, we come from a world that forged us into survivors, but we chose to reach beyond our nature. We chose to seek out others, to learn, to build bridges instead of walls. Hassan nodded. My body may be built for a death world, but my mind, our minds, are built for so much more. We didn't cross the stars to conquer. We came to understand. The silence stretched. Then slowly, Thessera stepped forward. Her delicate hand reached out, hovering inches from Hassan's arm. May I? Of course. She touched his skin and her eyes widened, not with fear this time, but with wonder. So warm. So much energy contained within. And yet, you control it. You choose gentleness. Other Zephyrians began to approach, their initial terror transforming into curiosity. They asked questions about human evolution, about Earth's harsh environment, about how humans had learned to temper their predatory nature with philosophy and art. Hours later, as the treaty was finally signed, Thessera addressed both delegations. Today we learned that strength is not defined by physical power alone, but by the wisdom to control it. Humans may be monsters by our physical standards, but they are also proof that even the most formidable predators can become the most trustworthy friends. Hassan and Elsa stood together as the first human-Zephyrian alliance was forged. They had traveled to the stars expecting to find acceptance. Instead, they had taught an alien species humanity's greatest lesson, that monsters are not defined by their bodies, but by their choices, and humanity, born of a death world and forged in struggle, had chosen to be better. End.